Welcome to another episode of Solutions with Soul with our returning champion, Val Reznik. If you guys remember, he had a lot of good stuff to say last time. A deep guy, been through a lot. And really, through all the muck and mire, he floated to the top, enlightenment and all. Right? so we're gonna, with this episode, we're gonna really just shoot from the hip and see what comes forth through the ethers, because a lot of times when we just sit around and talk, just me and him, just kicking the willy bobo, it's always very interesting. So this is unscripted, and you guys are about to be delighted and enlightened. You want to go ahead and kick it off first?
Hi everybody. Today we are talking about enlightenment because he started it.
Because it came out.
I usually try to avoid the topic because the word is so loaded, but at the same time, when I hear somebody say enlightenment now or enlightenment, right, I feel elated. I feel excited about that.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth talking about, even though the word itself is so loaded. And I think it would help to define what I mean by enlightenment, what you mean by enlightenment.
Yeah.
Right. And so for me, enlightenment means the experience of personal wholeness without separation. To be specific about that, when we look at our personal experience of I inside of me, and then look at the world, it seems that the world is out there and I is in here inside the skin. That perception is a mistake. It's a habit that most people in our culture have, that our parents had. And so we pick it up, right? And we think that that's how things are, that we're inside a little entity trying to survive in this big, maybe unfriendly world, trying to compete with others. For me, the experience of awakening, or the experience of enlightenment, or the experience of
I see what you did there.
true self, right, is this illuminating the truth of what I really am, the truth of my actual self. And what I see, the foundational self is open, empty, limitless, and it has awareness in the same way that a rose has a scent, has a positive scent, good scent. And this awareness that doesn't require any effort from me. It's already aware. It's already watching.
And in fact, you can't even not be aware.
Exactly.
Like if you try not to be aware, it's just
exactly. You can't.
You're aware that you're trying not to.
You can't lose it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And that's why you can't find it, because you can't lose it.
That's
right?
wild.
You can't walk out of it, like it's always here. It doesn't matter if my eyes are closed or open. No. It doesn't matter if my mind is thinking or not. Although when my mind is thinking, I'm focused on something else, I might not be perceiving it. And I think that's actually the condition that most humanity finds ourselves in, is that we're in our mind, whether maybe afraid of something, and out of that fear that something bad will happen, trying to figure out the next step, the next day, the next year, and just living from that position all the time, or afraid that something won't happen that we want, or maybe we're experiencing an emotion that we think is negative, which really just means that we're not comfortable with it. And so we might be experiencing discomfort and thinking, okay, so what's the next thing I can do or eat or engage in to take me out of this discomfort? And in between those, between shame, guilt, fear, anger, we spend most of our time. And this background, open, cognizant awareness, this our natural state, our true self, goes unseen. And so enlightenment to me means literally pointing a light inwards onto my origin, onto our origin, which is the same for each one of us. And I think that when we see that, when we no longer feel separated from the world or from the others, when all we see is the same consciousness looking back at us, the experience of othering disappears. And with othering, when we other ourselves from someone, or someone from ourselves, we then invest that gap with our fears and projections, and think that the other person is responsible for bringing those out. And we think that if we can fight them and win, then we won't feel that anymore.
Yeah, we're in conflict with it, like
Exactly,
like
right?
it's separate, right? Like it's separate.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
And it's all coming from this mistaken belief that what I am is separated from what this is.
Yeah, dang.
Right?
Yeah, get that a lot, especially in arguments, especially spousal situations, like with my wife. And we're really working on that. You actually, I call this man when I really go through some stuff. And he always helps me. He does a good job of bringing it back to me. You know what I mean? And where I'm at with it and what I'm feeling. And one of the most profound things that I feel like has helped me is when you say you can't be creative when you're in that state. And that's what we are. We're creators, right? We create things. So then when we're stuck in this flight, fight, or freeze situation, there's no creation. And then we can't create a way out of it. We can't figure out how to get out of the situation we're in. And really it's internal situation that's going on, the storm that's going on within, because we're so consumed by this look at what she did or look at what he did situation.
Right. So the perception is that I'm in pain.
Yeah.
And then we'll look who to blame for this pain, right?
Yeah.
Who made this happen? Yeah. And so when we become aware that we have layers of separation from the open state that we naturally are, and these layers of separations are egoic states or parts of ourselves that got traumatized early on and left behind, and that these are the parts actually feeling the pain and running away from pain, trying to make sure that you're not experiencing that pain because it's their job to make sure that you don't get re-traumatized.
Yeah, survive.
Exactly, survive at any cost, right? Me, right? And so that's the first separation, that me is the first separation.
Yeah.
And that me, we give it a lot of our attention.
Yeah.
Because we always have. Like we don't know. We don't remember the state of oneness, right? Most of us, the first separation happened at 1, 2, 3, 4, like whenever the first trauma happened, right? Yeah. And since then, like we had this full self that was trying to survive, that has an agenda of, I need to survive, has a strategy. I'm going to survive by appearing smart, appearing helpful, appearing
strong,
or not caring, fuck everybody, right?
Yeah.
Like, so there's a strategy, and so there's a fear that I'm not enough, I'm bad, right? I need to be better, right?
Yeah.
And so so that's how we know that those layers are, in fact, what we're looking through, right? They're kind of like lenses in front of our eyes, like we perceive through them, and so even though that person is saying things that may be neutral through the lenses, right?
You sound very loaded.
What I'm hearing, I realize I'm wearing right? What I'm hearing, right, is completely different.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's a interpretation that's happening.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think enlightenment is to be able to see what's here without interpretation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? To be able to just come into the middle, and first we have to recognize that middle, right?
Yeah.
So I talk about experience of wholeness.
Yeah.
Right? And so we need to have experience of wholeness. I've done, I've sat meditation vipassana for 15 years, 2 hours every day, and nothing happened.
That's a lot of time, right?
And then I realized that it was not enough, that, doing yoga, doing vipassana, doing meditation, that's not it. That all of that is meant to slow us down enough, move us past the thinking mind so we can actually see the whole self. That if you can't stop thinking, then you need to meditate. If you can't meditate, then you need to chant. If you can't chant, then you need to do yoga. If you can't do yoga, you need to perform good deeds, so your mind quiets down. But all of these are just tools to stop and look. That's it. Yeah. But if you don't know what you're looking for, and if you don't even know that you're looking for something, you can start deifying these tools, right? You think that they will get you enlightened. And that's not so.
Those are the false idols they talk about
exactly,
in the Bible,
right? Like you actually need to know, you need to have that experience of wholeness within you, right?
Yeah.
And the easiest way to do that is to meet somebody who has that experience, right?
Yeah.
One of the things I do, like I have a method that I'm beginning to write about and teach, right, is I work with inner parts, right, these layers of these ego states, and help them reintegrate, like meet them where they separated, use soul retrieval techniques, right? There's a soul retrieval is a shamanic method of recognizing when the soul underwent the trauma that split it, that fragmented it, and that where a part got left behind. and going back in time to that moment and reclaiming that part of the soul, bringing it back. And so these techniques have been around with us, for thousands of years. And they work, I think, better than anything psychology or spirituality can come up with, honestly. Right. And so when these parts come back, when we actually succeed in seeing what separates them and reintegrate them successfully inward, for that glimpse, while that part is reintegrated, we get this feeling of wholeness. Right. And if somebody is there to point at it, at that moment, go, that's wholeness. From that point on, you know that it's always there, even if, like on a cloudy day, there's no sun, there's there, right? Same thing here. And what I realized after, the reason I started this whole is 29 years ago, my mind stopped. And what I saw was more real than anything I've experienced before that, right?
That's wow.
And I was a serious dude. I was a sergeant in one of the 1st Airborne in Scouts, right? I was working in the planning firm, suit tie, right? The college, VI bill, wife, my sweetheart, college sweetheart, dog, house, truck, right? Like I had, for an immigrant, I was successful.
You fit the matrix very well.
Exactly, right? Like I succeeded. Right? And so when this happened, right, compared to what I saw when my mind stopped, my life looked like a black and white cartoon in comparison, right?
That's wild.
And I got super excited, and so spent the next 29 years trying to figure out what happened to me. And so 26 years later, just 3 years ago, it happened again. This time, though, I knew what was happening. And so I could see, and I saw the wholeness, and the bitch of it was that I recognized that through the 26 years that I've been looking for it, I've experienced it again and again and again and again. I just didn't know that that's what it was.
Recognize it, huh?
Exactly.
So you're saying 3 years ago you recognized
my mind stopped again.
Oh wow!
Fully stopped, and so I'm like, oh okay. So, but now, right? Like I had all the tools. I had I've studied enough over the 26 years, right, to see what I'm looking at. So I got it. I'm like, oh, there we go. Oh, I'm not me. Oh, I'm not a person. I'm not a body. I'm not a mind. So what am I? Oh, look at this. This awareness is just floating around in this spacious space, right? And I am this. I'm not this. Like I thought I was this trying to wake up, and I'm like, oh, I'm not this, right? And so that realization was the impetus for then start writing and teaching and all that, right? But because it was such a an obvious experience, right? I saw where I've experienced that in smaller versions of that throughout the years.
So do you think people are doing that all the time? They're experiencing it, but they don't know.
All the time.
This oneness.
That's why
what does it feel like then?
That's why you need somebody to point it out for you.
To point it out, huh?
Yeah. It's a moment where your mind stops, right? So I think...
I think I remember you told me once. I think you told me. It was when, okay, sometimes... Oh, what was it? It had to do with nature. Like I'm sitting out there in nature, and all of a sudden I feel like I can hear everything.
Right.
And all the colors, and all of a sudden everything just gets brighter. I'm tingling saying this. And everything, forget even in nature, even sometimes I'll be sitting somewhere and all of a sudden everything will just get brighter. And I'll be like, what the hell was that?
Exactly. So
that's it.
The lenses just moved out of the way.
Yeah.
Even the tingling, right? Presence has a texture.
Yeah.
You've experienced it as tingling.
Yeah.
It has a sound, like it's like a sound of a shell, a little bit.
Like a shell, like air in the shell. I hear that.
Right? And so what's interesting is I saw that the sound, what that is that the particles were made of coming in and out of existence very quickly. And we hear it.
I ask people if they hear that.
Right.
Because I actually hear it a lot.
Exactly.
And then I'm thinking that maybe I have, sometimes when I'm just laying on the ground and I'm looking up at the sky, I see it's almost like it's almost like carbonation fizzling in the sky.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
And so the physics are catching up, and they're saying that what you're looking at is observer creating reality that they're looking at.
That is wild. I need to hone in on that.
That without you looking at it, it won't happen.
It wouldn't happen. Wow.
However, right, the takeaway is not that then let me create, some bread then next, right? The thing of it is, right, is that you are that too.
Yeah.
And so
there's no creating of the outside of me. That's me too.
Right. Well, it's you're looking at energy through perception of this body, right? But the one who is looking is the same energy that's being created, right?
Oh, because
that's how it's interacting, right? It's interacting like this, right? So this is here, this is you. You're looking at yourself, and yourself is looking at you.
Oh, that's so
right. That's how it's connected, right?
That's why some people say like, maybe it was somebody told me that one time they went outside and they looked at a crow, but the crow, he saw himself through the crow.
Right, exactly. Yes, exactly. Yes, I've done that before as well.
That's so wild to me.
Yeah. I've changed bodies with women during lovemaking.
See, that's weird.
They switched. No, honestly, right? Like, and
so you really fucked yourself, right?
We're fucking in the moment, but the point is, right? Like, at one moment I'm kissing her breast, right? Like this, right? And she's kissing the top of my head, and all of a sudden I'm kissing the top of somebody's head, and I'm like, what is going on? My breast is being like, what the fuck? Wild. And both of us tripped and just pulled that back out into our own bodies, right? Yeah. Because like the focus was so much into that person.
That's so
the conscience actually flowed into that person, right? And it happened twice, so I know that it wasn't a fluke, right?
So wait, can I just go down that rabbit hole for a second? Sure. So what you're saying is that when you engage yourself into whatever it is you're doing so deeply that you will experience the whole thing.
That you lose the separation. Oh, the whole thing is already what we are. We are wholeness experiencing a temporary separation.
Yeah.
Right. That's why like a lot of work is not necessary. Right. Like a lot of times I say like any effort we make from wholeness takes us out of wholeness.
Out of wholeness.
Right.
Because it's just in reinforcing that there's no wholeness.
Exactly. It's right. The part of us that believes in separation is what's succeeding.
Yeah. Wow.
Right. And so we're reinforcing the pathology.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a finite point. Right. There's when we haven't had experience of wholeness, right? We need to experience wholeness. We need to look for it and experience it and have somebody point and go, okay, this is it.
Yeah.
Right? Like what we're doing right now, just dialing it in a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And so as we dial it in, something happens, right? And what happens is that there's this widening of perception.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's a tingling. You begin to experience the particles coming in and out of existence.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, in my face too, and that's what that is.
Yeah, everywhere. Right? Like you're just experiencing the vibration.
The vibration,
right? And radial vibration of that which is here.
That's so
right?
Wild.
And then there's a mind, right? That's about 15 to 5%. Right, of this personality based on all the trauma and all the experience, what we think is good and bad, right? And it's interpreting this vibration through this lens,
filter,
through this filter, right? And it's looking at somebody who's got, oh, this is a dude, I better act like a dude,
because this is how dudes act, right?
Exactly, right?
Yeah,
because we learned this since we were little kids, like, oh, I better act this way, right? I better show up this way. And all of these are lenses through which we're experiencing reality, right? And so there are moments when we forget, right? Sometimes good piece of music, sometimes nature, sometimes a good piece of art. Just we look at it and we're in awe for a moment, and all this separation leaves. And the point is that if it can leave, what are we when it leaves, right? And then what does it say about this temporary nature of this separation versus this thing which we are that never leaves?
That never leaves.
Right, and that then becomes the touchstone. It becomes our measuring of what's real. Right? That which is temporary cannot be real. That which comes on and off is just temporary shit. Right? It's like yesterday's breakfast.
That's wild. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's real, but it doesn't matter.
And it turns to temporary shit.
Exactly. Right? And that shit is constantly flowing, right? And so there's a flow of creation happening with interaction with us. Right? There's a creation happening all the time, but it's coming in and out of existence very quickly. Right?
And that's what they're saying, even like with that, because I teach a class, people coming out of prison, right? I call it identity mastery leads to self-mastery. And one of the things I always bring up is like the double slit experiment. where the photons come in and it created the wave function. But then when they observed it, it created the sporadic pattern because that's what they expected to see.
Right.
And then they said it's the collapsing of the wave function depending on what it is
who's perceiving.
Yeah, who's perceiving it. And then that really means like what you think and what you feel is really
who's
helping you collapse
it means
in.
that you're looking at yourself.
No, that's wild.
That and this is the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. And so they've measured the electrons at great distances, right? That, that are connected.
Yeah. What's that? Entanglement.
Right?
Yeah.
And they're wondering, like, how do they know when one is pointing up and the other one starts pointing down, right? Like instantaneously, right? Yeah. And this is how it's one thing. Right?
Oh, it's not separate. It's the
exactly
same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so here's a little mind-blowing thing, though, right? Is that when we're looking at the world, I look at the world out there.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You see the world as real.
Yeah.
And yourself as changing, right? Depending on what happens, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Right? And when we see that that's not actually true, that actually the inner self is real and constant, the same inner self you experienced when you were 2, the same one looking at me now.
Yeah, right now.
Right?
Yeah.
If we take those lenses out, it's the same self.
It is the same. Right? Yeah, even as a little kid playing with cars, it's like the same person.
Same consciousness looking through through different eyes. And the world then looks as a flow, temporary flow, like yesterday's breakfast.
That's wild.
Right? It changes, right? And then you look at it and it looks like a performance, just the most magnificent movie you've ever seen. Right?
I'm starting to feel that way in general, especially like with all the political stuff that's happening. When like I don't even watch TV. I like watching movies, but as far as the news and some of the stuff that's going on in the tabloids and all that, I can't even take it for being real anymore. Like it's so weird to me, like a foreign concept of why would I engage in something that's not real? Like it's not real to me.
Do you want to talk about it all?
Huh?
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh, because
I'm cool with that. Yeah. Because sometimes people feel, right, when somebody says that, because they've experienced the greater reality, right?
Yeah.
They lose the interest in the changing thing because they can see this thing changing all the time. It's a flowing river.
Yeah.
Whether or not they, look at it or not, it's just flowing.
Yeah, no matter what. Yeah.
And I step out of the river. I don't stand in the river and try to catch the next tree trunk coming my way and fight it.
Yeah, that's a good analogy because that's what it is.
It is, right? Yeah. It's like, it's okay. Like I'm on the side.
I'll let you do that.
I'll get into the river, catch the fish that I need, and get out, and then I see people there, protesting next log floating by.
Yeah.
Right. And what I'm realizing is that there is a pattern, cyclical pattern, waves of energy, if you will, right, that are moving through. And people get caught by those waves because what you believe today, what people believe today, they didn't believe 10 years ago.
Yeah, they didn't. No,
something happened,
stuff.
Right? Yeah. And they thought that maybe they changed their mind, but actually the thing that's flowing is what's doing it.
It's changing it all.
Yeah, they're just surfing that wave without understanding that that's what's happening. And they think they're the ones creating this and standing up for it and changing something when in fact change is doing them.
Yes, and they're just identifying as the change.
Exactly.
Right. And just like thoughts, I remember, and I've been trying to find this article where scientists said that thoughts are actual, like it's like water or precipitate. It's like a liquid. They can measure it and see it, and it's something outside of what's inside of us.
Right.
It's an actual physical manifestation of something. It's not something that we create in here and then shoot it out.
It's an entity.
And that's wild.
That
Isn't
we
that
think
wild?
is us.
Yeah, that we think is us. Because we vibrate at a frequency, and depending on whatever that frequency is, if that thought is on that same wave, guess what?
Right.
And then all of a sudden you think you're thinking something that...
One of my teachers used to say that the world is full of rings, but hooks are all yours.
Ooh, shit. Damn. Man, that's so true, right?
Yeah. And so that's what they mean by attachment, right? Yeah. Straighten out your hooks. Don't get attached to things, right? Just let them flow.
Just let them flow.
Don't catch on and down the street.
There you go. Yeah.
Right? And end up someplace you don't want to be, right?
Yeah.
And so at the same time, I know that people who are not spiritual in ways, right? Like they're busy doing life, right?
Yeah.
When we start talking this way, they think, oh, these dudes are spiritual bypassing.
Yeah,
they're not real, so you're not going to change. You don't think the world needs changing. You think this is perfect. And I think that there's a lot of things we can change for the better.
100%.
And I think we should. All of us should, right?
100%. The way we do it, though.
Well, right. I think, just to take this last century, right? Like, I'm appalled, right, that war is still legal. That is still happening,
wild,
right?
Yeah. You think we're beyond that.
Right?
It's like fighting as little kids. Are we going to still fight?
Well, that's the thing, right? So
altercation?
At the same time, like, if I put all I know, all my experiences through these past 29 years, enlightenment, or not enlightenment, awakening, meditation, psychology, all this, studying it with all these teachers that I found, right?
Yeah.
If I look at it from that perspective, not to be, overly arrogant or humble with it, right? If I just try to, think just my thoughts, not just accept what's coming.
Yeah.
What I see is that the cause of war, right? There are political situations. There are old families of old empires that have crumbled, but they're still like tugging for power.
Yeah, they want to try to hold
and then
on.
and then they want your participation and their behest.
Yeah.
And nobody really, they don't care about you or anyone else for that matter, right? That's still happening. But the real cause of war, right, is internal. It's this othering that we experience.
100%. That's why people are capable of going in there, suiting and booting, and getting ready to point at the other.
Right. So first, right, that separation, we kill our own experience of myself, right? So when I look inwards, instead of feeling joy over this incredible movie I'm watching we call life, I feel a sucking hole in pain. And then that sucking hole in pain, I try to distract myself from it, and I look at something else to do, and I find other people over there with their sucking within pain, with lozenges and stuff saying something opposite of what I believe. And so I think that I can express this pain by attacking them, right? So there's the othering is what creates this gulf, and then I invest all my projections, all my fears, guilt, shame, everything, right, into that gulf. And then I can, so I kill myself as I kill my own reality. I don't know my own reality first. And so I kill me first, right? And I separate from my pain, I separate from present moment experience of wholeness, right? So all separation is like all wholeness can only be experienced in the present moment. That's why we meditate. That's why we're trying to become present or silent, right? Not for the sake of silence or meditation, but so that we can arrive in the present moment and then experience wholeness for a second.
Yeah.
As vibing it, as seeing it, as what it feels like to be in pure experiencing, right? For a second, right? And so when we separate, we're separating from this presence, from this complete connected moment of experiencing.
Yeah.
And then we separate into a thought that has become petrified, right? A belief, right? So thought is petrified belief. Belief is petrified thought, right?
Yeah.
And that's based on things that we rented from our parents, picked up from TV.
Yeah.
Like
it's repetitive thought, right? You think it over and over and over again.
Right. So these repetitive thoughts, right? They're defensive systems meant to separate you from pain.
Yeah.
Right. And because we think that they will help us, like our thoughts and these defensive systems are helping us.
Yeah.
And we think we want to not experience what's here.
Yeah.
Right. We give them the power to take our attention, and we identify with them, and we become them.
We sure do.
Right. And in the moment, though, as you're that, if somebody comes in and goes, "What are you doing?" You're not that. And you're like, "Oh shit, that's right. What am I doing?" I just lost 3 years.
Yeah, you're right. Or the other thing I experienced too is where I dig in, to the identity,
right?
Because of
hurt.
Yeah, because of hurt. And it's crazy because, okay, so with me, I think I'm adopted, right? So I'm adopted from Sao Paulo, Brazil, and my parents are white, German Americans. Fargo, North Dakota, right? That's so when I was 7 or 6 years old, I went to Fargo, North Dakota. So my whole life, I had this whole thing of like trying to figure out my identity. And then, and I think it was actually one of the best blessings I can ever have, because I'm able to separate myself from everybody.
Right.
Because if I go to Brazil, they're going to be like, get your American ass out of here. You know, in the black community, they're like, oh, you're too white. And the white people, they're like, you're obviously not us. You get what I mean? So then I was always like this floating single thing out there. And then what I realized is that even cultures, society, different social statuses and everything, they all have these labels and these different ingredients that create them. Like for example, black. There's a lot of shit under that black label that I don't want to be associated with. That people automatically assume you're black.
Well, it changes too. Black in America is not the same as black in Europe, or black in Africa, or
black in Africa,
black in Saudi Arabia, or black in India.
They won't even say they're black in those countries. Like, I think that black is actually an American thing because of whatever the slavery and people saying, oh, you're black, you're African. I think it has to do with the slave trade or whatever that whole thing was.
Right. There's part of the identity, exactly.
Yeah, that created that whole black thing, and then all the marginalized, and you ain't gonna be shit, and you can't make it, and it's gonna be so difficult for you, and then I used to spew that shit all the time, and it was true. And then when I stopped, things started changing.
That's the thing, right? Like I told you that I used to work at schools in San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
With kids, like, K through 12, right?
Yeah.
And I was talking, I was working in a school with mostly black kids, right?
Yeah.
And I was talking to the woman. She was a poet, right? Really brilliant woman. And her and I were talking, right? And she was saying, yeah, society says this about black kids and this and this. I'm like, but this isn't true, right? And she's like, no. And I said, well, so, what's wrong? Like, why is it sticking? And she goes, because the kids believe that. That's the issue.
Yeah.
The kids see it and hear it and believe it.
All the time.
Right. And so, but even to move it out of black and white, right, which is the charge issue, but to male and female.
Yeah, same thing.
Right?
Same thing.
Right? So since I was a kid, I was trying to figure out what does it means to be a man.
Yeah.
I kept trying to put, things onto myself. I went in the army, or
I'm the toughest one, the strongest,
exactly.
I get all the girls, all of that.
Exactly,
stuff.
right? And so, but none of them are actually what I am. As a matter of fact, even if they were, what I am is changing, continuously evolving, growing every day.
Yeah.
And that role doesn't have space for me changing.
Yeah, 100%. Right? Yeah.
And so there's always going to be this dissonance between the role and what I feel I am internally.
And almost in every moment too, because it's almost like you just shed something,
exactly,
and you're different, but then you're like, oh, am I supposed to be that? Exactly. Like I told Maeve, I'm like, man, I'm so soft compared to what I used to be.
Exactly.
Like. Yes. Sometimes I'm like, do I even know myself?
You don't. Well, that's the thing, right? The part of us that knows, right, the intellect, is the thinking.
Yeah.
It's not what we are. Right, and I said that earlier, right? We're not our thoughts. We're not even our feelings, right? I know it could be a little controversial, but we're that which can
bring the controversy.
Well, we're that which can see them.
Yeah.
Right. And so the question is, when I'm thinking something, when I'm feeling something, ask who is feeling it and look.
Yeah.
Right?
I know.
Who is looking?
Yeah.
And it'll drop you right into this experiencing.
Yeah.
Right. Every time.
Yeah.
Right. And then you're like, oh shit. Ooh. Right. So this thinking self, planning self with agenda, this agenda-driven self, that's. The feelings are actually re-experienced. They're moved into thought things, and then judges them as negative, and then the negative feeling is experienced, right? Like they just snowball.
Yeah.
Right. And when I'm saying, oh, hang on a second, that's not my feeling, that's not my thought. I am not a person.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I am something. I'm the space in which all of this is happening. Right. And I go poof. And then the thought and the feeling flow through me in a way that, like I usually use this metaphor, right? Like the way like bad weather flows through your yard and you're just underneath the roof and you watch it go, right? Like without engaging it, right? Like you're not trying to hang on to it. You're not trying to define yourself. You don't think
catch lightning bolts.
You don't think you're bad because that's happening over there, right? And you're inside of you, right? You're not responsible, right? And I think it's that. I think that we're all good kids. They want to be responsible. And so we take all this shit that's flowing through us and we try to manage shit.
Yeah.
Right? And most of our life is managing shit, ours or the world's.
Yeah.
But the shit is just flowing. The reason it looks like shit is because of our lenses we're looking at. And there's enough bad, happening between people But all of that is default ego acting in itself without any specific actors. Even when we stop, it will just keep on default rolling, right? Like Billy Joel said, we didn't start the fire, it was always burning since the world was starting.
Turning. Yeah,
it was always that, right? I mean, the fourth person in the world, Cain or Abel, one of those guys, killed the other one.
Killed the other one.
Right? I mean, this, we were set up, right? Like this keeps happening, like, and I know, like, I've lived 62 years, and so every decade some new fear comes up. Right, that we think that we need to engage ourselves with, but that's not true. And so, if we are to change what we see, if we are to change reality, the one way to make sure that the wars don't happen, is we go inside and reintegrate our split off, separated parts and find our true self. Because those of us who have done that and see the true self as one will not go to war with anyone. That's the only surefire way to do that, because no ideology, no belief system
could penetrate that one,
right?
That true self.
Whether enforced or created by ourselves, right, has any reality to it. It can't change real. Real is this, permanent. The flowing is not real, and so trying to find our answers in the flow will always be frustrating. Those expectations will never be met. Right?
It's always changing, forever changing.
And so this observer, back to the observer, right? Like the reason, like looking at it and going, oh shit, I'm changing this, and then going, let me change the way I want it. The one who is saying, let me change it the way I want it, is already separated. It's already made the distance between itself and the world.
So that's not even the self either.
Exactly.
Okay, let me ask you this then, because I like practical stuff. Because with the science of spirituality, this Modern Mystic, my wife's company, what we do is we help people, through their transformations, let go of some of that ego and that personality that's holding them from obtaining what they want, right?
Sure.
And so in what you're talking about, right? And let's say somebody wants to, I don't know. So somebody wants to accomplish a goal. How can you utilize that true self to pick through the mire?
I love that. That's one of my favorite question ever. Right? Yeah. So there's this concept of intent. And this concept comes from Toltecs and Carlos Castaneda's writings, but the concept itself is that intent is a force of creation that's making this environment, the world as we see it, and that we can connect to it by doing certain practices. We can strengthen our connection with it, we can strengthen it, we can create from it, and with strong intent that we can strengthen through practices, the way that you strengthen your muscles when you work out, you can begin to create. The intent is different than judgment, than will, right? Will is from the separated persona. The intent is already a flow. It's already that which makes things flow, right? So we're already naturally connected to it. But when I'm separated through these layers of division, layers of defensiveness, I don't have access to it. And most of us don't have a strong enough intent because we don't get the chance to practice it. We don't recognize it. We don't get a chance to practice it. George Carlin famously joked once. He said that the only choices we get is paper, plastic, window or aisle, cash or charge. Right. So we don't get a chance. Like in our culture, for example, it's considered okay to renege on our New Year's resolutions. Right. Oh, you made it a month. Good on you.
Good job.
You made 3 months. Oh, right.
Yeah. So thought that counts.
Exactly. Right. And so because we know that we can't. Right. We know that we're weaker. Right. What we don't know is we can actually practice and make ourselves stronger in our intent. Right. And so intent looks different in the sense that you align with that which you love, would be lovely, right? You align it and you keep it that way while allowing the flow to move and create around you.
Okay, so let me just, do you mind if I just?
Yeah, it's kind of like prayer, right?
Yeah. So, hey, what's going on? We're going to get back to the interview right after this. If you like what you're hearing and you like the interview that's going on and you want to learn more about us, go ahead and go to thismodernmystic.com where you can get access to courses, merchandise, and live events that we'll be at. thismodernmystic.com. We'll see you there. You have an intention.
Yeah.
And you're able to hold on to that intention,
Right.
no matter how the flow is
Yeah.
going on
Right.
around you. And eventually that intention
Right.
is going to vibrate, or whatever it is, it's going to be,
right.
Is like the rudder that's going to get you to
Exactly.
where you want to
Perfect.
go, as long as you can hold on to that.
Exactly.
All right.
The problem with that is that we lose it. So, right, like when our intent isn't strong enough,
Yeah.
right? Most people can't hold the same intent for 13 minutes, much less 13 days or 13 years.
That's amazing.
Right? Like, and so by the time we get our intent manifested, we don't recognize it as that which we ordered.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. Even Maeve and I being here in Ashland in the mountains, when we first got together, which is like almost 5 years ago, right? When we first got together, we had pictures of the mountains, a bus, us traveling, and we ended up in the mountains. But then, because of the situation, and she wanted to like homestead, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so when we first ended up, we didn't have nowhere to go. Then we finally got a place to go, and we didn't have no electricity and no water, but there was chickens in the house to live in, and we had to haul our own water. Homesteading to me, right?
Exactly. So when their original intent didn't include water, not to split hairs.
No, you're right. It
Right?
didn't. It didn't. It was homesteading with chickens.
And so from when the separate itself is trying to create, when its projection of things it's desiring, right, they're so limited that even when you get them, you see what's wrong with it.
That's
rather than celebrating what you're getting, right? And so the difference would be, so first, to kind of like line it up first, look inside, understand wholeness, right? First find that, because without that, nothing else works. Understand what the direction is, because imagine, you're trying to get to New York, but you don't know which way to go. Right? And then some dude, got in a rocket and crashed in New York, and now he tells everybody to get in a rocket, and maybe they'll crash in New York, right? And that's what a lot of spiritual game looks like.
It does.
Right?
How'd you get there? I pressed a button and boom.
I fell off the bar chair, hit my head, and now I see it. Right? So you should fall off, right? And so the point is that you need to identify for yourself what wholeness feels like, so that you know.
Yeah.
And then all the different practices, pick the ones that help you stay here, right? Because once you see it, the job is to stay. First is to see it, second is to stay. And then as you stay, you will notice that there are layers of defensive, layers of trauma that are still preventing you from being present. Because when something less than positive happens, those layers become activated, and they take your consciousness, and they pretend to be you in the moment. Right? Like every time you've done or said things you wish you didn't, right? A part took over and was speaking for you. And if you have enough of those layers, enough of those parts, you're confused about who you really are. You don't have an inner experience of self. Your inner experience is pain. These parts keep taking over. Other people look like they're kept getting taken over by parts too. Everything looks crazy. And so at a certain age, when you're a child, you're like, hang on a second, this world is crazy.
It is crazy.
I might as well give up, right? There's no point here, And so, like, there's this giving up, this lack of strength and intent, lack of understanding of wholeness, lack of being okay with yourself, lack of accepting yourself, loving yourself, right? Like most people, when I talk to my clients and I say, love yourself, they go, how? What does that mean? Like, there's no internal experience. And so, first, have the internal experience of wholeness, understand that that's already loving, present, peaceful, right? And then look at it, find all the layers, right? And then like try to reintegrate the layers. That's the work, right? Like, so everybody's spirit, when it gets squeezed into body mind, right, it fragments because it's such a limited space for this unlimited spirit, right? And so the job then is to put the pieces back together again, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, even physically, right? We experience separation as knots, as contractions in our body that prevent the flow of energy, and that becomes dis-ease, right? And so when we start working through these layers and the corresponding contractions begins to let go, we feel healthier.
And lighter.
Enlightened. Exactly. Lighter. Enlightened, right? And so the first job is recognize wholeness. Second job is recognize all the layers that prevent you from staying here, right? And work to reintegrate them. And as you do, you're going to find that most of your life you lived out of shame, stress, fear, anger, guilt. And you stop. you stop living out of those. You're like, well, hang on a second. That person who is living from those is not true. It's not really me.
Yeah, it's not.
Right? Like I picked it up somewhere, but it's not true. It's an illusion of sorts that I'm looking through the world through. And so first you stop, right? Just like, when you're sliding in the car.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
If you overturn a little and you slide too much, right?
Yeah.
And then you try to overturn and you slide too much, and then you give up.
Yeah.
Let go. Foot off the gas, right? Don't do anything. Let the car stop first. And then start looking inward for what you're enthusiastic about. Enthusiasm means to be in God, which I love, rather than with God, to be in God, right? So what are you enthusiastic about? What's lovely about this, right? What would you love to do? And then use love as fuel rather than shame, guilt, stress to push yourself forward, right?
Yeah.
And then as you invest in love, honesty, truth, transparency, that becomes integrity, right? And so these parts, these separated parts, begin to trust you to take over the driving.
Yeah.
Because we love these parts, they're us, but we don't want them driving the bus, right?
No.
And so once you're in charge, once you're driving and you're driving towards that which you love, and then I think of it as a garden, right? You take everything out of the garden that everybody else planted there, right? There's the idea that I am this person and that person, right?
Yeah.
Take everything out and then start planting the things you love.
Yeah.
I love this plant. Then every day water it with practices until it grows up to become a tree, and then you have food forest. You have shade, it starts giving fruit, right? Right? That's the natural. And from here, then, what you're using love as fuel to move forward rather than anything, stress.
Yeah.
Right? Which is very different than most people, because most people are stressed, right? They're acting out of fear. And even if they succeed, right, they're just reinforcing the pathology of separate itself.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of times it is like that with, and I ask people too, like when you make a decision, really, all you got to do is figure out: are you doing it out of love, or are you doing it out of fear? That's
exactly.
It could be that simple, but then it's really being able to, when you were saying all those little parts that separated, right, and then all of a sudden it shows up, and it's not even you. It reminded me like is that the amygdala hijack.
Exactly, that's exactly what it is.
Right, where it just hijacks your whole being, and then all of a sudden, but it feels so real.
And so amygdala hijack, right, for those of us who don't know what that is that it's this almond-shaped part of our brain that's right through here, right, that's right at the top of a brainstem, and it's thought of as serpentine brain, right? It's responsible for instinctual reaction to danger. Yeah. Right. And so it can short circuit all of the other parts of the brain and take the attention and act.
Yeah, reptilian, right?
However, right, it's not very nuanced.
No.
Right. So an example, this nurse who was in Korea in MASH unit, right, 30 years later, opened the closet door and there were some poopy diapers inside, and the smell took her back to MASH unit being attacked by helicopter. She was on the floor, like screaming, right? And so the amygdala took over, and it just a little something reminded, and the amygdala takes over. And so if there's enough trauma, amygdala keeps taking over. You don't know who you are. You have an inner experience of confusion and isolation, because you can't understand yourself, so nobody else can understand you. And you think everybody else is that way, and then why do anything? And fuck it, let's burn it all down.
I get like that. Exactly. And even in arguments, like. Right. What's interesting is because I've been trying to be more aware, and even when it's happening, sometimes it's like it takes a day or two sometimes for me to really get clear and be like, what the fuck was that? You know what I mean? Because it's so real and so visceral that whatever I'm going through feels real. And even if you know
that you shouldn't be,
you're
like, fuck it.
Yeah, fuck it. I don't give a fuck. Fuck it. And burn it down, just like you said.
Right. Yeah. And so this part of you, right, that says fuck it, is the kid who gave up trying to figure shit out.
Yeah.
Right. It's 12, 13, right? Testosterone running through your system. You just, fuck it, I can't deal with this, right? Nobody around who can fucking help me. Yeah. Right. Fuck it is the only way forward.
Yeah, it is.
Right. And that's the part too. Right. To recognize that part and go, hey, I got you, man.
There's another way.
And would you trust me to take care of it? And what do I need to do for you to trust me? And the biggest thing, I need to be trustworthy to my own parts. Right? I need to have my own integrity with my parts. Right. So
I like you said that integrity, which integrity You're bringing it all in. You're integrating, and when it's all together, you're in integrity.
Exactly. So
I
integrity,
really like that.
exactly. So integrity, right? So boat that has integrity has no leaks.
No leaks. Yeah.
Right? No parts are missing.
No parts are missing.
Exactly. Right. And so that
structurally sound.
Honesty, love, truth, integrity, transparency, right, is what the reality looks like.
Yeah.
Right. And what's interesting about that, as you begin to integrate all these pieces, right, and this 13-year-old reintegrates, right, the older they are, the harder to reintegrate, actually, because they believe more. Right?
Just like it's hard to talk to them now. You know?
Exactly. Right. And so, right. But as you do that, what happens is that just like an onion, like if you start, taking layers off, eventually there's nothing in the middle. Yeah. Same thing happens here.
Oh, that's wild.
Right. And so Zen talks about it in terms of a gateless gate. Right? Yeah. You just walk through something, and what you're walking through is just into wholeness again, out of separation. You just stop perceiving separation, identifying with any separation at all, and you just open fully out, and then the ego part, right, gets scared. It's like standing on a cliff and not, without end, just big void, right? Like to the mind, it can't see the wholeness, right? Like,
because there's no structure, because it's within the wholeness.
Exactly.
So I can't see what it's within.
It's within the wholeness, and the mind looks for patterns to differentiate things, and then it calls those patterns names, right? Like short is defined by tall, right? Fat is defined by thin. You take one out, the other one goes out, right? Yeah. And so the mind defines things by opposites. And then the whole, there's no opposite. There's no division at all. There's no parts, right? And so it doesn't perceive it as anything. It just scared, right? And so it steps back. Yeah. Oh, shit. Oh, that was scary. Let's not look that way anymore. Let's go here.
Where I know that is a bad person.
Exactly, right? Like I go back into that. But the thing is, once you see it once, like you can't go back to that way of being anymore. Like it keeps nugging at you. Like, that's not real. That's not real. It's like I'm in a movie and I think I'm a real thing. This role isn't real. I'm not real. And then you go, oh, I'm a bullshitting. I'm a bullshitter. Everybody is a bullshitter. Nothing is real. And you go into nihilism.
Right? Where you don't care about
which is nice. Like it's one of the steps into it, right? But then out of that nihilism, right, you need to step in. It's what's keeping your nihilism is the fear of wide open. Right? Like a city person in the country. And so you need to be willing to step into the fear. Right?
Fear is the gatekeeper.
Well, fear is kind of like it's a fog, right? Like most people treat fear like a wall. Yeah. You go there, there's fear, you turn, you go that way, or you attack it, right? And you knock your head on it and it hurts. But if you think of it as a fog, right, and maybe you have somebody next to you who's already walked to the other side and walked with you, then it's actually kind of adventurous. Like, oh my goodness, right? Yeah. The best description I've ever heard was this gentleman named James Matters, right, that I met. He's a painter in Los Angeles. He said that he feels that his life, he feels like he's on the back of a rampaging elephant, looking backwards, moving through life, because all he sees is just destruction behind.
Doesn't know exactly where it came from.
Doesn't understand what's happening, right? And I love that.
That's pretty good.
And when I thought about that, what this looks like is you turn around and you face into the wind, not knowing.
Yeah.
And so the not knowing is the key. Yeah. You literally have to think and agree not to know. Yeah. In order to step into the unknown.
And that's cool.
Because your mind can't step there.
It's because if you know, then it's not the unknown. So you got to not know.
The knowing is the mind. Yeah, and the mind is separated, right? The mind is literally like an 80th of a second behind the present moment. Yeah. Like you can't think and be present at the same time. Impossible. No. Yeah. So as soon as you step into the mind, you're not present. You're not you're not facing it, right? And so in a way, it's kind of like hiding out of that fear, right? Like stepping out a little bit out of fear, which is okay, right? But like we need to consciously go, you know what? I'm willing not to know and step out into this and then see what happens here. Yeah. And that desire to know what's true, to know what's real, has to be greater than any fear that we feel. Yeah. As a matter of fact, as we step closer to it, the more fear we fear and feel, and it's actually a good sign. Spiritual.
Is it a good sign?
Yeah. Right. That's how you know.
I've been there.
That's how you know that you're stepping into the real. You're like, okay. Come back a couple of years later. Okay. Right?
Until you eventually walk through, right?
Well, that's the thing. Like you learn to like look, and this life starts happening to you, right? Mm-hmm. But because you don't identify as a little person, like it's not washing you out anymore. Like because you identify as spaciousness, conscious spaciousness is washing through you. Oh,
shit, I get it now. I think I get what you're saying right now. Because when the first time you look at it, you're still looking at it through the ego or through the small eye.
Yeah.
And then as you start to understand that you're more than this small
remove these layers of separation, and you have more and more oneness experiences. And eventually, you're like, oh, that's not me. Oh, look at that fear. That's a little lie afraid.
And it only goes through that one fragment. So it's like the fragments you're seeing. So whenever you have a fear, it's only going through one little lens of something.
Fear and is the other side of the coin from separation.
Yeah, yeah.
So as soon as you become separate, you feel fear. Literally.
Fear, 100%.
It's the same thing. It's the experience of separation, the experience of fear are the same experience.
Thing. Yeah.
Right.
Another thing I wanted to say too is you said this a while ago at the beginning of the podcast, where when you're in pain, you look out here to see who hurt you. What's wild is that kids, like, especially when first time they get hurt, you know who they blame? The mom.
Yeah.
Like, she did it.
Right.
Not even the dad, you know what I mean? Like, they'll bump their head and they'll look at the mom like, why'd you do that to me? And it wasn't even her. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's wild. It really happens. It's almost like just an innate part of us being what we are.
Right. So our first separations are experienced with our caregivers. Yeah. And specifically our mom, because it's our first caregiver, right? Yeah. So first time we feel separated, first time we feel traumatized, first time we feel we're not getting our needs met. Yeah. Right. Those are experiences. The most young experiences are on our mom 100%. And dad. Right. Yeah. And, those first, and so those parts are the strongest. Right. Yeah. And then we develop other parts. They try to take care of the younger parts. Yeah, right. So if the younger part is scared, and all the 13-year-old comes in, I don't give a fuck. Right? And then the 20-year-old comes in and like slicks down so it can get a job. Hey, I'm competent.
Yeah, try to create stability for the little kid.
Competence is everything.
Yeah, I know what I'm talking about. It is too, right? Yeah, I know this. I know that. I know this.
And then there's this inflated sense of self because we didn't get enough mirroring when we were a little kid, right? Like I'm better than everybody. Right, and that keeps that separation going. Yeah. Right? Until you hit 45, you start losing your hair. Yeah. You climb the hill, you're on the top, and you're looking down the other side, and you're going, oh, I guess it's not leading anywhere. I thought I was going to
get another hill.
I thought I just needed to pretend to be confident and competent, and I would get somewhere, right? Yeah. And so other people would know, and nobody knows, and I'm not getting anywhere, and I'm just going to go down from here. Oh shit! And then you have midlife crisis, right? Yeah. Like, oh, damn! Like, what is my life all about? It's like you realize that you've been climbing a ladder, and that ladder is up against the wrong wall, and everybody's climbing that ladder.
Everybody,
except that dude in school that was smoking weed and selling potatoes, and he's still sitting there. He's like, "So what's up, man? How was the trip?" And you're like, damn.
Want a potato?
And you're like, damn, he knew something. Yeah, he doesn't know anything either. Yeah, that's the point, right? Yeah. And I've done both. Like I went, to rainbow kids with dreads, right? To the job and the army and all of that, right? And none of that has answers. All of them are ways of separating. And so here's a measure.
That's so wild.
Right? Here's a measure to look at the world instead of looking at the world through the eyes of others, oppressed and oppressors, which create otherness, right? They're just another word for otherness or separation. We start looking at, is this idea, is this philosophy, is this person contributing to further separation or to reintegration?
Reintegration, yeah. That's interesting because my wife and I were talking about, especially like here in Ashland, there's so many healing and, spiritual people. And then there was a moment where she was like, you know what? It's just all still part of the matrix. Like these people are here and they're healers and they're, doing all this thing. Have you been to an ayahuasca ceremony? You know what I mean? I went to a dark room. I've done this. And all of it is still in the matrix. You're just in a different matrix trying to be somebody. And they all wear the same clothes and talk about the same shit, eat the same organic foods, eat the same raw stuff. You know what I mean? Like it's all just part of the...
As long as that separation from those people, from yuppies, it's still separation just to the other side.
Yeah.
It's still reaction to something, right? Yeah. And so one good measurement, right, of being in the path of reintegration is that you begin to forgive everyone. You forgive your parents, right? You forgive yourself.
Parents,
you forgive a person who cut you off yesterday, and eventually, like it stops hitting anything inside and just starts moving through. Right? You just see the person is having a hard day instead of taking it personally. How come you cut me off? Right?
So then I got some. Okay, so and we'll have to do a time check because I don't. She might text you. Did you hear a bloop, bloop,
Somebody texted me.
Val, or did Maeve?
Nope.
No. Okay. So
it's almost 4. 3:55.
And when did we get here? 2:30. Something like that. But yeah, better. But anyway, so I was. So
but you
it's
can,
not
you can
only.
Feel her in your head.
I know I can. Good, I swear.
Good.
So it's not only like what other people are doing to you. It's also like events that happen. Like like Maeve and I are getting ready to go to Minnesota, right? And it's like we've been working all these hours, and we are like, okay, so we're gonna get ahead financially and all that, and that is not what happened. And in fact, it feels like we went backwards, even though we worked more than we did.
Right.
And it's both of us working, and it didn't work the way that we thought it was. And so then we're sitting here like, what the fuck is going on? But it's because it's our own, what is it? Like we're still stuck in this ideal that it's not enough or something, right?
It's like the ideal that it's not enough, right, is what's preventing you from being your true whole self. Like already loving, already having enough, and acting out of that non-enoughness. Right. And even if you succeed, it just reinforces that. Right. So even if you get something, it's not enough. God. Because somebody once said that. They said, when enough is not enough, nothing will ever be enough.
No, it's true. When enough is not enough.
Right. On the other hand, right, like what I was saying, like those onion layers. Right? Like what starts happening is that as those not enoughness gets resolved, like it gets reintegrated, right? Those parts are no longer taking over the consciousness. What's happening in this moment is incredible. Not just enough. It's already like. And if I go to Michigan, this will be as incredible. And if I'm home right now, this will be as incredible. And this person is incredible. And my life is incredible. And all this shit that's happening with it. Wow, look at this. I mean, I couldn't have written a better movie myself if I tried. More engaging. One where I actually learn lessons and pick them up and still survive and get all this wonderful stuff, right? Like there's a greater perspective, right? And that's what I was saying. Sometimes people think that greater perspective means spiritual bypassing. It means you're not engaging in the world enough or don't want to.
You don't want to.
It's just that you're engaging from a different point. You're engaging from this is already enough. I'm already enough. She's already enough. We're just going through our layers of separation. Right, and once those lift, even if I'm sitting right here, I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm fine. You know? We just talked about that the other day because of you. I was like,
perfect.
You know, when it really comes down to it, if you think about what is going on now,
look at you and look at Maeve and look at the kids. Right, look who you are. Right, who you are is so rich. Right, both of you guys. Right, I loved when I saw you two talking to each other. Right, because everybody wants to hear her point of view and your point of view as it comes real life without pulling punches. Right, just really speaking for each other. You know, and the fact that you can be that, the fact that you're that person, the fact that you're this expressive person, right? Even if you had billions of dollars, you would be this person
regardless,
right? And so that is that unchangingness is what's true, right? Like as those layers of not enoughness, of not I need more for this or this or this begin to disappear, anything and everything is already perfect. And I am looking and feeling, right, this moment as incredible. Even in pain, even in starvation, right? Even starving feels incredible, right? Like even pain feels incredible, right? Like it's just, that's what changing. It's not that your outside stuff changes that much. However, the outside starts changing too, because as you begin to engage in what you love rather than what you fear, right?
You get more.
People respond. Right? People go, oh, like you're doing this. Right? It's a perfect thing because you love it and it loves you.
I love it.
Right? Like everything else is like you're doing it just to do this.
To do this. Exactly. I swear.
Exactly.
And I have this piece of paper on my wall and it says what I want to do and I want to travel. I want to have a big traveling budget, a workout budget, and I want to be with my family traveling. And then, but one of the biggest things is I want to have conversations with thought leaders in the world, and that's what this is right
exactly.
here. That's my thing. Why? Because why do I want to have these conversations? Honestly, I think part of it is just in the stars, right? I'm a triple Gemini.
True.
I love talking, but I love being things penetrating my mind and being like, holy shit. I don't know. I like being blown. I like my perspective being blown. I like
exactly right, and so that's what I'm trying to point out, right?
Yeah,
so we live in specific paradigms, right?
Yeah.
Right now we're in the American paradigm, right? That was born in the Soviet Union paradigm that disappeared, right?
Yeah. And I was born in Brazil, disappeared.
Right, and so these paradigms are like shoeboxes we're living in, right? Like we think that we feel comfortable, we understand how things work, right? And so us more successful than others,
and we really don't,
right? And then and all of a sudden these holes begin to show up in these boxes, and you go, whoa, there's a greater perspective. And I feel limited because I don't know it.
Yeah, but I want to know.
But I want to know because I want to be free is the point.
Yeah. And I do. And I feel like the more I know, there's things that are going to, and it's not only for, like, I feel I'm also a conduit for whoever, is on the other side of that camera or on the other side of that lens and might watch our conversation. And something you said that I could never say is going to hit them and they're going to be like, oh, boom, and expand out. You know what I mean?
Right.
Then expand out and be like, oh, that's what I've been waiting for.
And what if there's nobody on the other side?
It's still me.
What if it's you looking at you talking?
No, I believe it.
No, but what if it's true? Like
I'd still do
like
this.
What happens? Because freedom.
Yeah, because I still want that. Regardless.
Because freedom.
Yeah.
Right, and so freedom is like that list that you have.
It is
freedom should be the first, the middle, and the last.
Yeah, it is freedom.
Exactly.
I'm big on freedom, right? Even when
then you start qualifying freedom. Oh, that means this much, or this much money, or this. Or I'm in Bali, or this, right?
Yeah.
But the fact of it is freedom, right? And that freedom then is what begins to come out of you.
Yeah, that's why I stopped listening to the news. Freedom.
The love for freedom. Exactly. The love for freedom, right? And so freedom is our true experience of not being body and mind.
Right? So it's even freedom from like
exactly, like we out of separation, step out of the whole fucking separated experience because it's just a temporary thing that's happening to your mind, that's projection, that's not actually real. And so as you step out of it and you recognize I'm not a little limited being, I'm not a person trying to survive in this outside world, I'm actually something greater. You step out of all the physical limitations associated with that limited self. Yeah. Like even physical things are no longer limiting. Yeah. Even the memory of having been separated is no longer useful here.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah,
right. None of that is.
Was it ever to begin with?
Exactly. It was the whole thing.
Like was the separation?
Well, that's why we call it dream. That's why we call it awakening. Right. Like in a dream, we're seeing cities, we're seeing sidewalks, we're seeing people. We think they're real, but when we wake up, we know it was all made out of our consciousness. Right, and so the same thing here. Like all of a sudden you recognize, oh, I was just believing these things.
Yeah, just believing some.
They're just beliefs. They're not true. I don't need to believe anything for the truth to exist.
Right?
Yeah,
that's.
100%. But I need to believe shit for things that are not true in order for me to engage with them, to identify with them. Right?
Yeah.
Like, but I can just let them move through and be that which already is, which is difficult. Because when we don't know what to do with emotions like fear, anger, stress, right? Yeah. And they come through and we resist them.
We contract.
And then that contraction stays and that becomes our identity.
Yeah, 100%.
Then we meet somebody else with similar contractions and we identify with them.
And they validate the shit out of you.
Yeah, what's up, man? What's up, man? And then more of those. And now with the internet, we can get a whole bunch of people with the same pain, right? And then all projected onto the other people bunch, right? And then go engage them and punch them and they punch us and then we feel more justified. And then you're 45 and you're like, hang on a second, what am I doing? Right? Yeah. Right. And so there's recognition. We talked about Plato's cave last time, right?
Yeah.
There's recognition that you're looking at something through a lens that making everything skewed.
It's just a shadow.
It's a projection of some sort, right?
Yeah.
And then there is a greater self, and the greater self doesn't care.
Yeah, about any of it.
This whole expanded, unchanging
it's all
experience,
it, so it doesn't matter.
It doesn't care. Yeah. It doesn't care if you lost. It doesn't care if you found. It doesn't care if you're suffering. It doesn't care if you're happy. In the nicest way possible.
Yeah, like
so at first you see it and you go, okay, that's part of me, and then that kind of becomes like the air you start breathing because you agree not to know, and then it becomes who you are. Like when your identity shifts into this, right? Something happens.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you stop leaving here.
Yeah.
Right. This becomes home. Right? And so
instead of this becoming,
exactly,
or that identity or those beliefs become.
Exactly. That becomes something you
visit. Yeah.
You put that hat on.
And I like that. I've always said I wanted to, like, go out every day dressed like a cowboy one day, and
exactly,
you know what I mean? Because why not?
Right.
Just have fun, right?
And so you're dressed as somebody who was raised in Brazil and orphaned, and right.
I know.
And
I went through some shit, got locked up,
like all those little things, and you know intimately what that feels like.
Yeah, yeah. That's
I'm dressed as somebody who grew up in Soviet Union, stole my first bicycle, my first jacket because I couldn't afford anything else, right? You know what I mean, right? But I'm not that.
No,
that was such a long time ago.
So long ago. Yeah.
Nor was I that then.
Yeah.
I was just confused naturally.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Like if I look at the difference between what I know now and what I knew before, is that the confusion left. Like the stress in the back of my neck that constantly was there with agenda, driving me towards something left. Right? And so it's that gateless gate, right? You just walk through it and you're like, oh, freedom, shit.
Yeah.
Right? And you don't need to do anything here.
You don't have to do even anything to get the freedom. You are freedom.
Right? Well, there's recognition of wholeness that needs to happen. Right?
Well, that.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's I think it's confusing for people when we say we don't have to do anything.
Well, yeah, no, there's actually a lot that happens.
Well, right. So
a lot of integration.
Recognition and then reintegration of the layers.
Yeah.
That work must be done.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like that recognition of wholeness, right, is instantaneous. Right?
Yeah, that's wild.
Some teachers, just pop, right? Sometimes it's a result of work, right?
Yeah.
But whether or not you popped and saw the wholeness yourself or not, the work of reintegrating separated layers has to happen.
It still has to. Right?
It still has to happen, no matter if you're enlightened or not enlightened. You still have to do the work. In this lifetime or 100 lifetimes from now. Yeah. And so any little movement, even 5 minutes along this path, is absolutely worth it.
Yeah,
right? It's leading towards freedom. And freedom or truth and reality, right, is the most important thing that we ever could touch in this human body.
Ooh, and the truth shall set you free.
Exactly. The kingdom of heaven is within.
Within.
Turn inward. Look inside. Understand yourself. Understand your own psychology. Understand what wholeness is. And learn to stay here.
I wanted to say one thing about when you were talking about beliefs. And beliefs need you to believe in it in order for it to. And there's this show. It was called.
Identify with it. Yeah.
What was it? It's called American Gods. And the gods are at war with each other because the new gods, which is like the world, which is like the web and the new technology, these are the new gods. And
they're getting the attention.
Are getting the attention, and like Odin and all those other gods are losing the attention. Yeah. And they're at war with the new gods to get the attention of the people.
Exactly.
Because once we stop believing in them, they disappear forever.
Exactly. Right. So the war outside is for our attention, because our attention is what creates reality, right? Yeah. So our attention, like observer, back to observer and observe.
It is.
Yeah, oh right. So it's our attention, or
are you guys getting this?
Or the ability to focus specifically.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so when we focused out, right, our pain remains what it is. We confused about who we are, and we're experiencing confusion about what reality is. Right. When we focus inward, when we start looking at our own sense of wholeness, and we recognize it, right, and identify with that as ourselves, right, and then begin to see the layers and do the practices so we can see these layers. We learned how to see our own psychology, right, and then reintegrate those layers back in, right. Our focus then is used, like all of these things that we thought were bad, like too stubborn, too rebellious, right. Can't pay attention to anything, right? Yeah, when we start looking inward, all of these abilities are actually become very much the same abilities we need in order to stick to it. Because once we find what's true and invest in that, all of these ability, that stubbornness, that not paying attention to stupid
things around you,
exactly, right, actually becomes the very thing you need to wake up, right, to fully go through the layers.
So all you ADHD super folk, stubborn motherfuckers,
all these things that people ever told you were wrong with you, are actually the very, very thing you need once you turn inwards in that journey inwards towards that gateless gate. That's exactly what you're gonna need.
That's amazing.
Like fully engaged, fully into it.
That's amazing. Well, look, I want to keep talking to you, but I know we have a limited amount of time. I'm going to leave all of Val's information in the description. So if you guys want to, did you want to talk about, because he has a book. He gave me it for his birthday.
My book just came out.
Yeah, I'll
show it to you. I don't know if one is too shiny. So paper book or hardcover.
Yeah.
And the book is called The Bonfire of Existence. You can get it on Amazon. It's just my story of waking up 29 years ago and kind of moving through life and falling on my face more than once and learning from that until I realized that failing was the learning. And so, like I said, after 26 years of finally re-experiencing that mind-stopping experience again and seeing it for what it was, I started writing and teaching. And so I have a website. It's called thegardenofTrueSelf.com, where we invite people to do the practices that I've tried out that worked.
He shows you the moves.
Right.
So you don't even have to look for it. Right on the website, he shows you all the different moves.
Right. Yeah. You can read the book, like I said, on Amazon. And I'm always open to those looking for reality, for truth, for freedom. Right?
Yeah.
I love talking about that. So any one of you guys, if you're on the path or something is happening and you saw reality for a second or want to know what it's about.
And he's a funny man too. Like we do back and forth. We don't share it with everybody because I don't think people are ready, but we do jokes to each other on text. It's awesome. So if you guys really want to be enlightened, not only on the way to your own enlightenment, but just in general, you want to get some nurturing information, you want to learn, you want to feel better about yourself, all of it, I swear, just even being in the presence of this man, that's how I feel. And so I always love talking to you. I really do. And I love you, and I appreciate you. Like, you have no idea. I appreciate you so much for you being you. Seriously, and I'm glad you're my friend. So
same.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, when you said I love you, that's exactly that. Right? It's the one loving itself.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, just seeing itself in itself, right? Without the layers, right?
Yeah,
for a second, you just take the layers and like, oh shit.
Yeah, it is true. Yeah. Well, thank you guys for joining us, and make sure that you like and subscribe. Don't forget the information is going to be down in the description, and pass this information on so that more people can be reached. Thank you so much and have a great day.